The sky was on fire. Yenna stood at the window of the underground bunker and watched her world die. The city of Thessara, built over thousands of years by her ancestors, was burning. Tall towers that once touched the clouds were now broken. Beautiful gardens where children used to play were now ash. The violet sky that her people loved so much was hidden behind thick black smoke. The Kravik swarm had come without warning. Their ships appeared 3 days ago. Hundreds of them. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh, ugly things that blocked out the sun. The Kravik did not talk. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked. They wanted resources. They wanted slaves. They wanted everything. Yenna was the ambassador of the Valari people. She had spent her whole life talking to other species, making friends, building peace. But now, all her words meant nothing. She had called the Galactic Council for help. She had begged them. She had screamed at them through the communication screens. They said no. Thessara is too far, they told her. The cost is too high. The Kravik are too strong. We are sorry. They were not sorry. They were afraid. The great species of the galaxy, with all their ships and weapons, were hiding in their safe corners while her people died. Yenna's scales, usually bright and shining, had become dull with stress. Her large eyes, made for seeing in low light, were red from crying. She had not slept in 2 days. Around her in the bunker, her assistants worked desperately, trying to organize evacuations that would never happen in time. "Ambassador," said a young aide named Tello, "the Eastern District has fallen. The swarm is moving toward the Temple of Echoes." The Temple of Echoes, the oldest and most sacred place of her people. Thousands of civilians had gathered there, hoping the ancient walls would protect them. They would not. Nothing would stop the Kravik. Yenna closed her eyes. This was the end. Her people would become slaves or food or worse. The Valari civilization, millions of years old, would disappear from the galaxy like it never existed. Then she remembered something. 20 years ago, a small ship had arrived at Thessara. It was ugly and simple, nothing like the elegant vessels of the older species. Inside were strange creatures. They stood on 2 legs. They had soft skin with no scales or fur. They called themselves humans, and they came from a planet called Earth. The Galactic Council had laughed at them. Humans were young. Their civilization was only a few thousand years old. They were violent, the Council said. They fought wars among themselves. They were not worthy of joining the galactic community, but Yenna had met them. She remembered a human captain, a female with brown hair and kind eyes. The captain had given Yenna a small device and a communication frequency. "If you ever need help," the captain had said, "call us. We will come." Yenna had smiled politely and put the device away. She never thought she would use it. Why would she? Humans were weak. Humans were primitive. What could they possibly do against a real threat? But now, standing in the burning ruins of her world, Yenna had nothing left to lose. She found the device in an old storage box. It was covered in dust. She cleaned it with shaking hands and activated the frequency. The signal was weak. Earth was so far away. Probably no one would hear. She spoke into the device. Her voice was tired and broken. "This is Ambassador Yenna of the Valari people. We are under attack. The Kravik swarm is destroying our world. The Galactic Council has abandoned us. We have no weapons. We have no ships. We have only our children and our elders and our hope." She paused, her throat tight with emotion. "If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We are dying." She ended the transmission and sat down heavily on a broken chair. It was useless. Even if the humans heard, they were too far. And they were too weak. This was a foolish hope, light years away, in the cold darkness of space. The carrier ship Indomitable moved through the void. It was a massive vessel, gray and powerful, built for war. Inside, 4,000 Terran Marines slept in their bunks, dreaming of home. On the bridge, Captain Dohan sat in his command chair, reading reports. He was 53 years old. His hair was gray at the sides. His face had the lines of a man who had seen too much death. But his eyes were sharp, and his mind was clear. The communication officer, a young man named Jinsu, suddenly sat up straight. "Captain," he said, "we are receiving a distress signal. It is very weak. Coming from the Tassara system." Daon frowned. "Tassara? That is Valari space. What does the message say?" Junsu played it. Yena's voice filled the bridge, tired and desperate and full of fear. When it ended, there was silence. Commander Jian, the second in command, stepped forward. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes like ice. She never smiled, but she was the best tactical officer in the fleet. "The Kravik swarm?" she said quietly. "They are dangerous. The Council has been afraid of them for centuries." "The Council is not coming," Doan said. It was not a question. "No, sir." They refused. Dawan stood up slowly. He walked to the main window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Strangers, aliens, people who had never done anything for humanity. But they had asked for help. He turned to Jian. His voice was calm and steady. "Wake the Marines," he said. "All of them?" Jian did not hesitate. She nodded once and began giving orders. Alarms rang through the ship. Soldiers woke from their sleep. Weapons were loaded. Drop pods were prepared. Humanity was coming. The Indomitable tore through slip space like an arrow from a bow. Around it, 11 more ships followed. They were not the biggest fleet in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they were fast, and they were angry, and they were coming dot in the drop bay. Sergeant Taiwu checked his rifle for the 10th time. He was 26 years old, young for a sergeant, but he had earned his rank in blood and fire. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. This was going to be a hard fight. Maybe the hardest of his life dot around him. His squad prepared for battle. Corporal Yunji sat with her back against the wall, her eyes closed, her lips moving silently. She was praying. Her grandmother had taught her the old words when she was a child, and she said them before every battle. She was 30 years old, tough as iron, and she had saved Taiwu's life twice already. He trusted her completely. Private Hyunwoo was the youngest, only 21. He was checking his equipment with nervous hands, making small jokes that nobody laughed at. He was scared, but he was trying hard not to show it. Taiwu remembered being like that once. Private First Class Selman was quiet, as always. She was 24, with short hair and serious eyes. She never talked much, but when the fighting started, she was always where she needed to be. She was the rock of the squad, steady and reliable. 30 minutes to drop, announced the speakers. Taiwu stood up and looked at his squad. These were his people, his family. Some of them might not survive the next few hours. That thought sat heavy in his chest, but he pushed it down. There was no room for fear now. "Listen up," he said. "We are dropping into a hot zone. The Kravik swarm has taken most of the planet. The locals are hiding in some kind of temple, and the bugs are coming for them. Our job is simple. We land, we hold, we kill anything with too many legs." "Understood?" "Yes, Sergeant," they answered together. Hyunwoo raised his hand. "Sergeant, how many Kravik are there?" Taiwu looked at him. "Thousands. And how many of us?" 4,000 Marines. Hyunwoo did the math in his head. His face went pale. "That is not good odds." Yoonji opened her eyes and smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Good odds are boring. she said. Besides, the bugs do not know what is coming for them. The drop pods were loaded. Each one held a single Marine, strapped into a metal coffin that would fall from space like a meteor. It was the fastest way to put soldiers on the ground, but it was also terrifying. Many things could go wrong. The heat shields could fail. The parachutes could jam. The enemy could shoot you out of the sky. Taiwu climbed into his pod. The metal closed around him like a fist. He could hear his own breathing inside the helmet, loud and steady. He thought about his mother back on Earth, about the small house where he grew up, about the cherry trees in Spring Dot. Then the countdown began. 10 seconds to drop. 9, 8, 7. Taiwu closed his eyes. 3, 2, 1. Drop. The pod fell onto Zara. The Valari were dying. The Kravik had broken through the last defenses. Their warriors poured through the streets, 8-legged monsters with sharp claws and acid spit. They did not feel pain. They did not feel mercy. They only felt hunger. At the Temple of Echoes, 4,000 civilians huddled together. Mothers held their children. Elders prayed to gods who did not answer. Young Valari, who had never held weapons, stood at the doors with kitchen knives and broken pipes, ready to die fighting. Ambassador Yena was among them. She had refused to hide in the bunker. If her people were going to die, she would die with them. They are coming, someone shouted. The swarm is coming. Yena could hear them now. The clicking of claws on stone. The hissing of their voices. Thousands of them, crawling over the ruins like a living carpet of death. She closed her eyes and waited for the end. Then she heard something else. A sound from the sky. A roaring, screaming sound like thunder and fire mixed together. She looked up and saw lights falling from the clouds. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. They fell like stars, burning bright against the smoke-filled sky. The first one hit the ground in the middle of the Kravik army. The impact was huge. Dust and rocks flew everywhere. The Kravik stopped, confused by this strange thing falling from above. Then the pod opened. A figure stepped out. It was tall and strange, covered in gray armor, holding a weapon that glowed with blue light. It moved with speed that seemed impossible, running straight toward the nearest Kravik warrior. The weapon fired. The Kravik's head exploded. More pods landed. More figures emerged. They came out of fire and smoke like ghosts, like demons, like something from the old stories. They did not hesitate. They did not hide. They ran toward the enemy with no fear at all. Taiwu's boots hit the ground, and he was already moving. His rifle kicked against his shoulder as he fired again and again. Kravik warriors fell around him. His squad landed nearby, forming up without needing orders, moving like a single organism. "Push forward," he shouted. "Get to the temple." The Valari watched in shock as these strange creatures fought their way through the swarm. They had never seen anything like it. The beings moved with incredible aggression, charging into danger instead of away from it. They screamed battle cries in a language the Valari did not understand. They did not stop even when wounded. Yena stared at them with wide eyes. She recognized the symbol on their armor. A small blue planet. "Earth," she whispered. "They are from Earth." She remembered the human captain from 20 years ago. The kind eyes. The simple promise. "If you ever need help, call us. We will come." Yena fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. They had come. Against all logic, against all reason, against all possibility. They had come. The Terran Marines had arrived on Tessara, and they were very, very angry. The battle for the Temple of Echoes lasted 17 hours. 17 hours of blood and fire and screaming. 17 hours of Marines dying and killing and refusing to give up. The Kravik came in waves, endless waves, crashing against the human lines like water against a stone wall. And like a stone wall, the Marines did not break. Lieutenant Minho commanded the northern sector. He was 32 years old, with a scar across his chin from a battle he never talked about. He stood behind a broken pillar, shouting orders to his platoon while Kravic acid burned through his leg armor. "Hold your positions," he yelled. "Nobody steps back." Nobody. A Kravic warrior came over the wall. Minho shot it in the face. Another one came. He shot that one too. His rifle was hot in his hands. He could smell burning meat and melting metal. He could hear his Marines fighting and dying around him. He did not care about his leg. He did not care about the pain. He only cared about the people behind him. 4,000 Valari civilians who were counting on him to keep them alive died in the medical tent behind the lines. Medic Yuna worked without stopping. Her hands were covered in blood. Human blood. Valari blood. It did not matter. Blood was blood, and wounded were wounded. "Hold still," she said to a young Marine whose arm was nearly cut off. "I am going to save your life, but you need to stop moving." The Marine was crying. He was maybe 19 years old. "Just a boy. I want to go home," he whispered. "Please, I want to go home." Yuna looked him in the eyes. "You will go home," she said firmly. "I promise. But first, you need to let me fix this." She worked quickly. Bandages, medicine, stitches. The boy passed out from pain, which was good. She moved to the next patient. And the next. And the next. There were so many wounded. Too many. She had been awake for 20 hours. Her vision was blurry. Her hands were shaking. But she could not stop. She would not stop. On the eastern side of the temple, Sergeant Tai Wu's squad held a narrow street. It was the most dangerous position, the place where the Kravic attacked hardest. The street was only 10 meters wide, which meant the enemy could not use their numbers. They had to come one group at a time, and one group at a time, Tai Wu's squad killed them. Hyunwoo stood next to his sergeant, firing his rifle until it overheated, then switching to his pistol. A Kravic claw came through his shoulder, cutting deep into his flesh. He screamed in pain, but he did not fall. He grabbed the claw with his bare hand and shot the Kravic through the chest. "Are you okay?" Tai Wu shouted. "I am fine." Hyunwoo shouted back. He was lying. Blood was pouring down his arm. But he was still standing, still fighting. Yoonji ran out of ammunition. She did not have time to reload. A Kravic warrior jumped at her, all claws and teeth and hunger. She met it head on, swinging her rifle like a club. The first hit broke its leg. The second hit cracked its skull. She hit it again and again until it stopped moving. Then she picked up a Kravic weapon from the ground and kept fighting. Someone held the left side of the street alone. She was crouched behind a burned vehicle, her rifle steady, her breathing calm. Every shot she fired killed a Kravic. She did not waste ammunition. She did not make mistakes. She was a machine, perfect and deadly. When a group of Kravic tried to climb over the wall to flank them, she was there. When one of the younger Marines panicked and ran, she caught him and pushed him back into position. When Tai Wu needed covering fire, she gave it without being asked. She was the heart of the squad, the one who kept everyone together. But even machines break. A Kravic acid spray hit the vehicle she was hiding behind. The metal melted. The fire spread. Someone moved to a new position, but she was too slow. A Kravic warrior caught her from behind. She turned and fought. Her knife went into its throat. But another one came. And another. Somin. Tai Wu screamed. He ran toward her, firing his rifle. Hyunwoo followed, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. Yoonji was right behind them, but they were too far. Too slow. Somin looked at her squad. Her friends. Her family. She smiled, just a small smile. And then she did something impossible. She grabbed a grenade from her belt and ran forward into the group of Kravik warriors. The explosion killed 12 of them. It created a gap in the enemy line. It saved her squad, it killed her too. Taiwu reached the place where she had been standing. There was nothing left but smoke and ash. He stood there for a moment, frozen, unable to breathe. Then he screamed. It was not a human sound. It was the sound of a heart breaking, but there was no time to mourn. There was never time to mourn. More Kravik were coming. Keep fighting. Yunji grabbed his arm and pulled him back. She died so we could live. Do not waste her gift. Taiwu wiped his eyes. He raised his rifle, and he kept fighting. High above the planet, Commander Jian watched the battle on her screens. The situation was bad. The Marines were holding, but just barely. Casualties were mounting. Ammunition was running low. They needed help. She turned to Captain Doan. Sir, I have an idea. It is dangerous. Tell me. We bring the Indomitable into low atmosphere. We use the main batteries to hit the Kravik staging areas directly. Doan frowned. Carriers are not designed for that. The heat could destroy our engines. Yes, sir. But our people are dying down there. There was a long silence. Dohan looked at the screens. He saw the Marines fighting, bleeding, dying. He saw the temple full of innocent people. He saw the smoke rising from a planet that was not his. Do it, he said quietly. Bring us down. The Indomitable descended through the clouds like an angel of death. Its massive guns turned toward the Kravik armies, and they fired. The explosions were enormous. Whole blocks of the city disappeared. Thousands of Kravik died in seconds. On the ground, Taiwu looked up and saw the carrier above him, impossibly close, its guns blazing. They are insane, he whispered. Then he laughed. They are completely insane. The Kravik began to retreat. For the first time since the battle began, the Marines cheered. Dawn came slowly to Tessara. The violet sky returned as the smoke began to clear. The Kravik hive ships were gone, running away to deep space with their broken armies. The battle was over. The Temple of Echoes still stood. 4,000 Valari civilians were alive, but victory had a price. It always had a price. Captain Dohan walked through the field hospital outside the temple. The ground was covered with wounded soldiers lying on blankets and stretchers. Medics moved between them like ghosts, their faces gray with exhaustion. The smell of blood and medicine filled the air. Dohan stopped at every bed. He looked at every face. He learned every name. Private Kang Ho, age 20, from a small town near the sea. He had lost both his legs. Corporal Myre, age 28, a mother of 2 daughters. She would never see again. Sergeant Dong Yoon, age 35. He was asking for his wife in his sleep, calling her name over and over. So many wounded. So many broken bodies. So many lives changed forever. And then there were the dead. 812 Marines would never go home. 812 families would receive messages of condolence. 812 empty chairs at dinner tables across Earth. 812 holes in the world that would never be filled. Duhan knew he should say something. Give a speech. Inspire his troops. But he had no words. What could he say? That it was worth it? That they died for a good cause? Those words felt empty now, surrounded by so much suffering. He found a quiet corner behind a ruined wall and sat down on the rubble. For the first time in 3 days, he was alone. No one was watching. No one needed orders. And so he cried. He cried for the dead. He cried for the wounded. He cried for himself, for the weight of command, for the decisions he made that sent good people to their deaths. He cried until there was nothing left. until he was empty and hollow and cold. Then he wiped his face, stood up, and went back to work. There was still so much to do. Taiwu sat against a broken wall on the eastern street. The same street where his squad had fought. The same street where Soman had died. He stared at his hands. They were shaking. They would not stop shaking. Haiyan Wu was in surgery. The doctor said he would live, but his arm would never be the same. He would probably be sent home, discharged from the Marines. His fighting days were over. Yunji was alive, but she was not talking. She sat nearby, staring at nothing, her eyes empty. Taiwu had seen that look before. The look of someone whose soul had gone somewhere far away. It might come back. It might not. And Soman was gone. Just gone. Like she had never existed. Taiwu kept seeing her face. Her small smile before she ran into the enemy. The way she looked at him, as if she was saying goodbye and sorry and thank you all at once. He wondered if she had been afraid. He wondered if she had known what she was doing. He wondered if he could have saved her. He knew the answer. He knew there was nothing he could have done. But that did not help. It never helped. Ambassador Yenna found him there. She was thinner than before, her scales still dull, her eyes still tired. But there was something different about her now. A strength that had not been there before. She had watched her world burn, but she had not broken. She knelt before Taiwu. Among her people, this was the deepest sign of respect. It was what you did for heroes and saints. Taiwu looked at her with confusion. What are you doing? Honoring you, she said simply. You and all your people. We just did our job. Yenna shook her head. No, you did much more than that. The Galactic Council told us that humans were savages. They said you were violent and primitive. They said you were not worthy of respect. She paused. They were wrong. They were so very wrong. Taiwu did not know what to say. He was too tired. Too empty. Can I ask you something? Yenna said, Yes. Why? Why did you come? We are strangers to you. We have never helped you. We have never given you anything. The Council rejected your species. We are not your friends, not your allies. Why did you risk everything for us? Taiwu was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Soman. He thought about all the Marines who died. He thought about the scared Valari children he had seen in the temple, hiding behind their mothers, looking at him with huge eyes. Because you asked, he said finally. And we could. Yenna stared at him. That is it? That is the only reason? That is the only reason we needed. Tears ran down Yenna's face. She did not wipe them away. I do not understand your people, she whispered. I do not think I ever will. But I know this much. We will never forget what you did here. Never. She stood up slowly. The survivors want to thank your soldiers. The elders want to perform a ceremony. Will you allow it? Taiwu looked at her. He looked at the ruined city. He looked at the rising sun. Our soldiers need rest, he said. Most of them are wounded or exhausted. But those who can walk will be there. We will accept your thanks. He paused. And we will thank you too. Thank us? For what? For surviving. For being worth saving. He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. We did not come here to lose you. So thank you for living. Yenna bowed deeply and walked away. Taiwu stayed where he was, watching the sun rise over the broken city. Somewhere, he could hear people crying. Somewhere else, he could hear people laughing. That was how it always was after battle. Death and life, mixed together, impossible to separate. He closed his eyes and thought about home. Soon, he told himself. Soon he would go home. The part of him would stay here forever. Part of him would always be on this street, fighting beside his squad, watching Soman smile one last time. He would carry that with him until the day he died. All soldiers did. The news of Tessara spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species heard what happened. Every world watched the recordings that survivors had made. They saw the Kravik swarm descending on the Valari. They saw the Galactic Council refuse to help. And they saw something they never expected. They saw humans falling from the sky. They saw strange, soft-skinned creatures charging into battle against monsters. They saw soldiers dying to protect strangers. They saw a carrier ship descend into atmosphere, risking destruction, to save people who were not even their own kind. The galaxy did not know what to think. For centuries, the older species had laughed at humanity. Humans were young and stupid, they said. Humans were violent animals who would destroy themselves before they ever became important. Humans were not worth noticing. Now, no one was laughing. On 100 worlds, people began to ask questions. Why did the humans come? What kind of species risks everything for strangers? What did the Council miss when they rejected Earth? There were no easy answers. Ambassador Yenna returned to the Galactic Council 3 weeks after the battle. She walked into the Great Hall where the representatives of 1,000 species sat in their chairs, watching her with curious eyes. She was supposed to be grateful. She was supposed to thank the Council for their thoughts and prayers. She was supposed to be polite, that she was not polite. You told us that humans were savages, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the entire hall. You told us they were primitive and violent. You told us they were not worthy of joining the galactic community. She paused. The hall was completely silent. You were wrong. She looked at the council members one by one. Some of them looked away. Some of them looked ashamed. Most of them looked angry. When my world was burning, I called you for help. I begged you to save my people. Do you remember what you said? You said it was too far. You said it was too expensive. You said the risk was too great. Her voice grew stronger. My children were dying, and you said no. She took a step forward, but humans said yes. They crossed the stars in hours. They dropped from the sky into fire and death. They fought and bled and died for people they had never met. Her voice broke slightly. 812 of them will never go home. 812 families will never see their loved ones again. All because we asked for help, and they answered. One of the council members, a tall being with 4 arms, spoke up. The humans are a dangerous species. Their willingness to die in battle proves it. We should be concerned, not impressed. Yenna turned to look at him. Her eyes were cold. Concerned? You should be grateful. If the Kravik had taken Tessara, they would have become stronger. They would have come for your worlds next. Humanity did not just save my people. They saved the entire galaxy from a greater threat. She shook her head. But you do not see that, do you? You only see what you want to see. She walked toward the exit. Before she left, she stopped and turned back one more time. The galaxy is changing, she said. Humanity has shown us something we forgot. That strength is not just about power. It is about what you choose to do with power. The humans chose to protect the weak. They chose to fight for the helpless. They chose to be heroes. She paused. What have you chosen? She left the hall in silence. On Earth, the fallen were honored. In the Great Plaza of Geneva, where the United Nations once stood, a new memorial was built. It was made of black stone, smooth and simple, and it rose toward the sky like a reaching hand. On its surface, 812 names were carved. Each name was lit from within, glowing softly in the darkness. They called it the Memorial of the Reaching Hand. Families came from all over Earth. They touched the names of their sons and daughters, their husbands and wives, their brothers and sisters. They cried. They remembered. They said goodbye. Captain Don stood at the back of the crowd. He was in his dress uniform, metal shining on his chest, but he did not feel proud. He felt tired. He felt old. He felt the weight of every name on that wall. Commander Jian stood beside him. She was crying, something he had never seen before. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Dahan did not answer for a long time. He watched the families. He watched the children who would grow up without parents. He watched the old people who had outlived their children. I do not know, he said honestly. I hope so. I have to hope so. Across the galaxy, something was changing. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries began to send messages. They wanted to talk. They wanted to trade. They wanted to be friends. Some of them were scared, afraid of what humans might do if they became enemies. But others were genuinely curious. They wanted to understand these strange creatures who would die for strangers. The Krotic swarm retreated to their dark corners of space. They did not attack anyone for years. The survivors of the Battle of Tessara had told their hive mind what they faced. The humans, they reported, were insane. They did not fight like normal species. They did not calculate odds or measure risks. They simply attacked over and over until they won or died. There was no way to predict them, no way to control them, no way to defeat them without paying a terrible price. The swarm decided to find easier prey, and the Valari never forgot. Every year, on the anniversary of the battle, they held a ceremony at the Temple of Echoes. They spoke the names of every Marine who died. They told stories of human bravery. They taught their children about the strange species that came from the stars. To save them, they called the humans by a new name now, a name that spread across the galaxy, whispered in 100 languages by 1,000 different species. They called them the ones who come, on the indomitable, now repaired and sailing through the stars again. Captain Dohan made his final log of the campaign. People will ask what this was for, he said quietly. They will wonder if it was worth the cost. Politicians will debate. Historians will analyze. Everyone will have an opinion. He paused. But I know what my Marines died for. They died because someone was afraid. Because someone was hurting. Because someone asked for help and no one else was coming. He looked out the window at the endless stars. That is enough, he said. That has always been enough. That will always be enough. He ended the recording and sat back in his chair. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble. Somewhere out there, someone needed help. And when they called, humanity would answer. They always would. That was who they were. The ones who come.